3% of the people on this earth have all the wealth and all the power. They own most of the land, the corporations, they run our government, they run our educational system, they control the media. How have they done this but hide it like a buried treasure from anyone else? So how do you become a 3%er? Andrew Carnegie asked the same question, and he appointed Napoleon Hill to go interview the 500 most successful people in the world. And what Andrew Carnegie found is they all did the same thing. So what was it? What did they do? What's the difference between the guy on the 70th floor in New York looking down at the guy picking up the garbage off the street? It wasn't their intelligence, although that does help. It wasn't their good looks, although that does help. It wasn't their education, although that will help. But it was the one thing they all had in common. When we look at guys like Thomas Edison or Henry Ford or Harry Firestone, who, by the way, were all friends and used to go camping together. Isn't that strange how Thomas Edison, the father of lighting, Henry Ford, who's the father of the automotive industry, and Harry Firestone, who's the father of the tire industry, all were friends and used to go camping together. So what is it that they know that I need to know so that I can do the things that I'm called to do with my life? Here's your first clue. Henry Ford was already a successful automobile manufacturer. He got this idea that just popped into his head, that it was possible to create a one-piece block engine. In other words, no seams. And the scientists who worked for him in his creative department said, Henry, it can't be done. You have to remember, Henry Ford sued the Chicago Tribune newspaper because they said he was ignorant. They kept asking him questions about his own company, and he didn't answer any of them. Finally, he said, Judge, I don't know how all these pieces and parts work. I pay other people to do that. He ended up winning the case. He got a total of 6 cents from the Chicago Tribune. So I want you to understand that it's not about how intelligent you are. But he had that hunch that his mechanics, his creative team, could put together a one-piece block engine that would revolutionize the automobile industry. And so he went to a scientist and he said, I want you to build this. And they said, we can't do it. He said, I want you to try. So they tried for a whole year. And after a year, they went to him and said, Henry, it just cannot be done. But something inside Henry Ford said, his intuition, his thoughts, something prompted him. And he had used it many times before, and it was never wrong. And he was experienced at using it. And he understood it. And he said, I want you to keep trying. And so they did. And a few months later, they created a one-piece block engine that is not only the center of the automobile industry today. Not only did it revolutionize the automobile industry, but marine, airplanes, locomotives, because Henry Ford had an idea and he wouldn't step down because all of the intelligent people told him it couldn't be done. And that's just powerful. Another gentleman, E.M. Gates, who most of us have never heard of, used to sit in an 8-by-8 foot room with a light switch, a chair, a table, a pencil, and a piece of paper in the dark and wait for answers to problems that he was given and being paid to get answers from corporations. E.M. Gates created over 200 useful patents that are registered in the patent office till this day. There was nothing special about E.M. Gates, but he understood a process and he had turned it into a skill so that he was able to use information just like Henry Ford or Harry Firestone or Thomas Edison or Alexander Graham Bell or Christopher Columbus that came from something outside of themselves. These men were able to recognize and acknowledge that there was something out there that was greater than themselves. And they had access to this supernatural guidance, and you can too. Not only is there this supernatural source for information, but there are laws that were created in the beginning that influence everything that happens. And if you're not familiar with these processes and how they're affecting you, then you can go your whole life and never find happiness. If you're looking for a way to finally break through the confusion and the fog and to get clarity on what your purpose is and how to find fulfillment and to live in abundance, that's what we're going to be sharing with you. And I wish it was as simple as learning one thing, but it's just not. You're going to become a different person. You're going to become the person that allows these things to happen in their life. By becoming skilled at these processes that we're going to teach you, you become a different person and in effect create a different life for yourself. But you're going to know exactly what you're doing, and you'll know exactly the process that will get you there. This is not something you can do on your own. The people who have success in certain areas of their life are practicing these principles whether they know it or not. But if you know the principles and you're practicing them, then you become one of the 3%ers. And that is when you can start changing the lives around you. Alexander Graham Bell, who of course invented the telephone, stated, "What this power is, I cannot say. All I know is that it exists, and it becomes available only when a man is in that state of mind in which he knows exactly what he wants and is determined not to quit until he finds it." Pulitzer Prize-winning biographer Samuel Eliot Morison wrote that Christopher Columbus's frequent communion with forces unseen was a vital element in his achievements. So after a little research, you start to see this common thread or skill that is available to anyone that people who are successful use to guide them through their life. And you can have the same skill. But that is just a part of it. The people who understand how things actually work in this world have accumulated an enormous amount of wealth and an enormous amount of power and an enormous amount of influence and are using those to keep you ignorant. After meeting with and sharing this information with the sales manager of a company, I said I would like to come in and share it with your employees. And he told me I would never let that happen, because then they would go and use it themselves. And that is the attitude that elitists have that keeps people in bondage. Even Napoleon Hill, who worked for Andrew Carnegie and wrote the book about the 500 most successful people in the world, states, "I'm not going to give you the answer. If you're meant to have it, you'll just figure it out." Really? As you go through this website, you're going to get those answers, and they're not going to be hidden. You might say, "I don't want to rule the world, be a politician, or run the government, or run the news media." And most people would agree with you. But what you're going to find is the ability to find the one thing that everyone is searching for: fulfillment. And they don't teach this in the schools, but they do use the schools to keep people ignorant. In the early 1900s, our government, which is run by the elitists, created compulsory education so that they would have access to the entire population and they would be able to control the information being fed to this new group of people that were thrown together. They already controlled the government, the land, and the newspapers, which at that time was the media. 95% of all students who go into the public school system are right-brain thinkers. They're creative. They use their imagination. But by the time they're in second grade, 75% of those have become left-brain thinkers, logical thinkers, listen and obey thinkers, because they're taught reading, writing, and arithmetic. They're taught to obey. Stand up, sit down, put your hand down, no questions. And they take away the ability for that person to be creative and to tap into their intuition and get the information that can guide them into being a leader or an entrepreneur or a self-taught thinker. They just want people who will just obey and follow the rules, which means they put you in bondage. And you have to wake up because they put you to sleep with the media, debt, so that all your time is spent trying to pay your bills and there's no time to actually think. You have to become free financially, and you have to free up your time so that you can spend the time to be able to creatively think and do the things that you were called to do, not just to serve the government and the elite. The number one medical condition today is depression. Surveys show that 90% of people are unfulfilled. There's a sense of satisfaction, but down deep, a lack of fulfillment. Surveys show that on a scale of 1 to 10, the average person functions at a 2 or a 3. Over 80% of people working today are working in jobs that don't access their full potential and abilities. In other words, 80% of the people working would rather be doing something else. Now, I know lots of people who are successful in one or maybe two areas of their life. Maybe they have a great business making lots of money, but their family's falling apart. Or maybe they have a great marriage and great kids, but financially they're always struggling. So in reality, success without fulfillment is failure. And on this website, we want to show you how to find fulfillment and success in every area of your life. And if you have been asleep or ignorant of the process, then this is your opportunity to learn the skills necessary to bring yourself where you need to be to find that fulfillment. Now, before you sign up below, I want to share this quick story. I asked a young man in a seminar one time, if you could have anything, what would you ask for? His answer was immediate. He said, a car. I asked him, why would you want a car? And he said with a little embarrassment, so I could get a girlfriend. I want someone to hang out with, someone that I can hang out with so I can be happy. I asked, why do you want to be happy? He thought, I don't know. I just want to be happy. Whenever I take this line of questioning, whether it's to an adult or a child, it always comes back to, I just want to be happy. People just want to be happy. They want to find happiness and fulfillment. And the key to finding that happiness is knowing how. So sign up below, read the book, watch the vlogs, and come to our webinars. And we're going to teach you how. Because your life can be different. I know, because it happened to me. My story's in that book.